Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nicholas Tanek. I love writing. I love writing. It saved my life. It's therapeutic. It connects me with people. It informs me. It helps me understand the world. It helps me understand each other. It helps me understand other people. It's a beautiful, powerful force. And the kink community has magnificent writers, wonderful writers, people with fire in their hearts, with creativity, people who are seeing the world in a way that maybe you don't see it. And that is a cool thing. This is the YKF Author Circle for 2024. It's November 17th, 2024. I am honored to be around my kinky friends. Please let me go around the room and say hello to everybody. First, my old friend, Ami Mercury. Ami Mercury. Oh, Ami Mercury, creator of Orc Girl, creator of a lot of unique content. She's been on the show before as Mojo Jojo. We did a whole interview where we started just like this, and by the end she had full Mojo Jojo makeup, and then joined us for Sundays. Been on the show many times. We part of Pep Love. The list goes on, but Orc Girl is her work of art, a graphic novel. We'll talk all about it. Second, we have legendary Mistress Kaz B, an old friend of the show who's been writing, putting the voice of the UK dominatrix out into the world, collaborating with other people, just doing amazing things. Then a friend of mine, an FOT, a friend of Tom from The Best Show, host of People Are the Enemy podcast, and also a very prolific writer. One of his latest books, The Peeper and the Playwright, caught the eyes of many of our kinky friends here. But he's written other books too, and we're going to talk all about that. And last but not least, I love this woman, Suzi Martell, author of Kink and Tell, a wild, sometimes heartbreaking book about abuse, about being a sex slave, about growing up and embracing yourself and creativity, and kinking out and telling all about it. Please welcome Suzi Martell. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the YKF Writers Circle, or Author Circle, whatever you want to call it. Thank you very much. Everybody can get 15% off. The offer code Locked in Lust. So let's go around the room. Let's start off with Ami. What's inspiring you these days?
Let's see. Well, last time I was on the show, like you said, I was cosplaying Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. I've been focusing a lot on my creature elements lately, where I've been, creating a lot of creature looks. So it's not as much time as I would like for writing and drawing, but admittedly, Orc Girl, my creative work has been on a bit of a hiatus. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out there, but it's still in my mind. It's still something I'm going to come back to.
Okay. Mistress Kaz B, what's inspiring you these days?
What's inspiring me? I think just going out there into the world and seeing so many different things, how the kink community is, the changes it goes through, the evolution. And I think there's just so much room there for growth.
Yeah, it is. It is very inspiring. Andy Mascola, author, People of the Enemy podcast. What's inspiring you these days, my friend?
These days, mostly memoirs. I'm working on a heavily fictionalized memoir for National Novel Writing Month. So I've been reading a lot of memoirs by interesting creative people in order to gain some inspiration.
Memoirs are wonderful. I wrote one myself. Suzi
Martell. What's inspiring me at the moment, because I'm new to social media like Twitter, and so since I've been on Twitter, I'm inspired by all the wonderful people and friends that I've met there. I'm overwhelmed by the warmth that I've received, and that is what's inspiring me at the moment. So all you lovely people out there that are watching me, and especially Kaz, Melissa, JB, LB, everyone, Zappa fan, hi. You inspire me.
it is a beautiful feeling. When I wrote The Coolest Way, it was like a confession. It was almost like a suicide note confession, kind of coming out as a kinky person, stuff like that, coming out as an author, becoming, so to speak. And the honesty that I put out in the book, it reminds me of the honesty you put out in your book, Suzi, because you deal with some pretty devastating subject matter, right? And you're here, you're live, and not only that, but you wrote about it.
I did. I came back 10 times stronger.
So let me ask you this: what's keeping you writing?
Well, that was my first book, and obviously that was very draining to do. As you know yourself, you relive every moment. But I'm going to write another book because that was only half of my life, and I have another half, which is book 2. And if I'm honest, there's actually a book 2 in book 1. So I'm kind of working around things that way. But I am taking over strictly English, and I'm going to be writing writing scripts. And my lifelong friend David, who I met in the scene 30 odd years ago, is going to be helping me with the takeover, and hopefully we'll make it fun, brilliant stuff, because it's 30 years old and it's a good production company in CP.
Nice. Andy, you're talking about memoirs. So what's keeping you writing? You're very prolific. You put out a book, I'd say, like every year, every 2 years, something like that.
Yes.
So what's keeping you writing? What's keeping that flame going?
Well, I think what I like to do is take a lot of information in. So I'm constantly searching for new and exciting things and things that interest me, whether that's film or books or even music, and calling ideas from those things and then kind of relating them to my own experience and filtering it through in order to create my own story. I've been fortunate in that every year I've had, one idea for an original novel, and I've been able to kind of harness that idea and then basically sit down and try to recreate it from my mind as best I can onto paper, and then edit it until it looks and sounds as good as it can be, and then put it out into the world. But yeah, I don't know if that would happen had I not been consistently, exploring and trying new things and reading as much as I can and taking recommendations from friends and really just trying to gain inspiration from the world at large.
Definitely. Amy, I see you constantly doing content and Mojo Jojo makeup. You were Blue. You were Blue Monster.
Yeah, I was a Beast from X-Men recently.
Orc Girl, last time we talked, you're kind of putting it on not hiatus, but like you've been busy.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. Right. So what's keeping you writing? Are you writing? What's keeping the flame going on with you?
I'm still writing, very privately though. I actually have sort of a, like I need another side project. But I do have a idea for a light novel in the works, and it's still very much in planning stages. So I don't, I haven't even spoken about it publicly yet. So forgive me if it's a bit half-hearted, but I will say this much about it, is that as I've been working on these creature effects recently, putting on all this makeup, I've started to kind of create this persona of the professional monster, which is sort of a hat tip to the fact that I am professionally being a monster on camera. And I thought it'd be fun to write a book about a character who is in fact a professional monster. And I think that's what I'm going to call it.
Professional monster.
That's a great title.
That's a great title, because we're all professional monsters in some way. Right?
If you can get
it's a great title
down to 2 words, that's the trick.
Yes.
Yeah.
The original.
Thanks. Thank you.
I've had problems with that. I've had problems with that rule.
It's not easy.
It's tough. It's tough. When I wrote Orc Girl, that was like, I was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, about 8 years ago, I was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first started Orc Girl, that was like, I want to keep this. I had like all these different, I jokingly, when I first star I had jokingly called it 50 Shades of Green.
That's good. For those who don't know,
I knew that wasn't going to be the final title. I was like, I have to shorten it down, but that's really funny. Like, in fact, if like some of my old files on my computer that had like the notes and stuff from my original creation were actually the Word document was titled 50 Shades of Green.
I love that.
and for those who don't know, Orc Girl, and can you kind of describe the premise of what Orc Girl is?
Well, Orc Girl is sort of, when I first created it, I wanted to have a kind of grown-up fantasy. I, like a lot of fantasy, but a lot of it's kind of written for teenagers. And I'm like, well, I'm in my 30s. I want a story with characters that are going through adult problems. So, I was, very new in the adult industry, and I wanted something kind of kinky. And the story of Orc Girl is about just a girl from the modern world who goes into a fantasy world. And she becomes the human pet, is the term they use, to an orc king. And the story goes from there, where she's basically, and it's a romance, but she's basically a slave, but willingly so, to an orc king.
Sounds really interesting.
It was fun.
I'll have to buy that. I'll have to get that now when it comes out.
Oh, it's great. And the artwork, you did all the artwork too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, I mean, it is a magnificently impressive. As soon as you open it up, you're like, wow, I know the person who did this. it really is beautiful. I highly recommend everyone check out Orc Girl. But I'm not going to forget about, we have some
questions.
Nico Noir says, hello all. Does AI affect you and your storytelling? Has been a help or a hassle? Before we get to that, I don't want to forget Kaz B. Basically, Kaz B, what is keeping you writing?
I think I feel compelled to write. I think that I get obsessed by an idea that I've got to write something. So if I get inspired, I see something in the world that inspires me, I have to do it. And I hate interruptions. I can't stop until I've done it. And I've usually got 3 or 4 different things on the go at once. So one will get neglected for 6 months while I write on this, and then I might go back and forth. And eventually, somehow, I don't know how I do it, but I managed to get something published between all the faff.
I've actually left people in the middle of conversations to write something.
Yeah.
That's so rude.
You know what though? People who write get it, because if you don't write it down, then it's like squirrel, and you're on to something else. So
all right. Nico Noir has a great question. Shout out to Nico Noir. Hello all. Does AI affect you in your storytelling? Has it been a help or a hassle? Let's start with Amy on that one.
That's a really good question. I really appreciate that, because I think when AI art first came around, I was a little hesitant, like a lot of people. But I think I've tried to look at it as ways unfortunately, I don't think it's going anywhere. We're stuck with AI. But I'd like to use it as sort of a tool to help, not to do the whole project for you. But for example, in Orc Girl, I needed a background for this one area, kind of like a village nestled in a hillside. I was having a very difficult time picturing it in my head and how to even draw it. So I went to some AI engine and I started typing in a prompt of little village, thatched roofs, mountainside, and then it populated a bunch of ideas for me. And now I didn't just take it and put it right into my comic, but I used that as my drawing reference and drew the village, inspired by what I saw from AI. So I think that, it's helped me in a sense that it can give me inspiration when I'm feeling a little dry. But I don't think it's a good idea to use it to replace your work, just as kind of to supplement.
Andy, what's your thoughts on AI?
As far as the writing part, I haven't used it at all, other than, I think it automatically comes up when you search things through certain search engines in terms of a definition or whatnot, or can give you the latest information. I think Google now does that. But
Amazon, you look up your own books on Amazon. It
that's
gives you
true.
an AI generated review.
That's true. Yeah, but I haven't incorporated any of writing at all from AI. I was trepidatious at first, when it first started gaining popularity, and I think I've come to accept it. I think some very intelligent people that I've spoken with, I said, are you at all worried about AI? And when they said no, I thought to myself, well, if this person who is much more intelligent than myself is not worried, then I probably shouldn't be worried. And I think, to your point, Amy, is it that it can be a help to you creatively. I think that's how it's best used. But I know that the artist of my most recent book and a few of my other titles has used it extensively for his Patreon in order to generate artwork and to go along with his stories. But he hadn't used it at all on the covers that he created for me, at least not up to now. But it's not something I'm afraid of. I'm hopeful that maybe perhaps at some point I'll be able to implement it in what I do. But obviously, I suppose, like, I always think about, like, the drum machine. Like, the drum machine came along, people thought, oh my gosh, what are drummers going to do now? But
the Moog, Robert Moog was like, had death threats for his organ. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, he sure did, because they thought it was like otherworldly, and it would like the keyboard would take your soul.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. People are obviously, trepidatious and fearful when new technology comes around. People were afraid of electricity when it first came around. People were afraid to be in a car that went over 30 miles per hour. Initially, they thought something terrible would happen to their bodies. I think.
Can you imagine the first dildo, the first vibrating dildo? What is this?
Entire body.
Oh my God.
What is this sorcery?
Yeah, so I guess the short answer is I haven't used it, but I'm not afraid of it, and I have seen it used quite well. I don't know if, and I know Nicholas, the artist Momus.
Oh, I wanted to bring that up, actually.
He just put out an
interview.
He just put out an album called Ballyhoo, in which basically he used AI to create the music for the songs, and he basically just kind of fed prompts into like K-pop style music, and then put up the entire album.
The tiger song, the two tigers or something, the two K. What's the?
I don't know that one. I think that the really popular one from that album though is called Plastic Soul, and it's SEOUL. But yeah, it's
Asylum. Plastic Soul.
He's always impressed me in that he's never shied away from embracing whatever technology is coming along. He was one of the first people to blog and and as far as AI is concerned, it would make absolute sense that he put out an AI album. So in this way,
as a writer, he is extremely prolific. He made the Book of Jokes, On America, a whole bunch of books. I want to get him on the show. I've interviewed him in the past for other publications.
Oh wow, actually. Lucky you! I've tried, and he won't respond.
Oh really? I did for a creation. You can check out. I'll send it to you. What is that? That might be Sue. But anyway, so let's okay. So Kaz B, has AI affected you or your storytelling? Has it helped or has it been a hassle?
I think initially I felt very intimidated that this AI was coming along, and I heard all these authors are writing books just using AI and putting them out there, and I'm thinking, what, this takes years to write books, and now they're just So I went into ChatGPT and I said, for example, write me a short story about this, that, and that. And for me, I read through with my very critical eye on it as a writer, thinking, right, I'm going to find some problems in this. And this short piece I created, it was interesting. For me, it lacked that whole, I went with comedy. It wasn't funny enough. I think you can't ever replace humor. Robots will never really get humanity. So when they get to that point, that's going to be a worry. I did actually use ChatGPT, this is really sad, to write a letter of complaint to Parliament. So I think if you want something official and you just want to save some time, brilliant.
They're using it. They're using it through letters for you. So
exactly. Yeah, you can't replace that creativity when you just get that little zing, that spark into your soul that you've just got to write. I don't think a robot can replicate that.
Stan Vladimir says, question for Ami Mercury. Have you watched Arcane? there's a specific creature, character that you definitely like to cosplay?
You know, unfortunately, I don't know why I've missed that one, because I've seen little bits of it and the animation style is stunning. And, you know, I've never played League of Legends, which the show was based on, but it looks fascinating. And now that the second season is out, I need to go back and watch that. So thank you for the suggestion, Stan. I appreciate that.
Okay, on to the interview. KRS-One has a quote, and he's talking about music. He's talking about hip hop. And it says, "Image sells a record. Records come and go and get collected." Is it the same for authors?
Yes, because I think you have to have an image, and I think you have to stick to that image and not, you know, like if you're constantly writing lots and lots of books and you change the image, I think people get used to you as a certain person. So if you can stay within that genre of the way that you're writing, I think that that's quite important, maybe.
I'd agree. I'd say that, you know, if you bring up, you know, certain authors' names, whether it's like Haruki Murakami or Kurt Vonnegut, at least when I think of those people, I get a certain feeling. And I suppose just like music, when you're looking through a record collection and saying, how do I feel, or what do I want to listen to? How am I feeling now? And you pull out something that kind of matches the way you're feeling in order to enhance it. Similarly, I suppose a writer's aesthetic is similar. If you want something darkly humorous, you might go to Kurt Vonnegut. If you want something kind of otherworldly, you maybe go to Haruki Murakami. And I imagine that every author tries to establish some kind of aesthetic that they can hopefully attract readers to, and that readers will come back to experience again and again.
You saw it,
Like Kaz has got a style of writing, and you can tell it's Kaz. Melissa's got a style of writing, and you can tell it's Melissa.
Yes.
And that's, yeah, the voice. It's the voice, and that's what you want your readers like that. And so if they change it into something else, they're thinking, oh, I want the Melissa and I want the Kaz as I've read them previously. Do you understand what? Yeah, maybe I'm not making sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Well,
absolutely.
It's branding.
With Amy.
Yes.
Yeah, with Amy.
That's
Amy, your monster, like the orcs and the monster makeup and everything like that. I mean, I would imagine you're doing both hand in hand to kind of market each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
So, and I think, like, I took the quote, I took it to heart, because I wrote a book called The Coolest Way to Kill Yourself, right? And first of all, the title is not like going to be on, oh, thank you. The title is not going to be like in your supermarket with the other books, right? Mm-hmm. And the cover looks a little different, right? So like, because it's all homemade, I wanted it organic, I wanted it to be real, right? I didn't want to be overproduced. So let's talk about covers. Tell us about how and why you choose your covers. Now, everyone, I'm going to go specifically around the room because everyone has a different kind of style. First, I'm going to go to Amy, because Amy's orc girl, I'm going to try to bring this up if I can, but it's pretty beautiful. And it's all done by yourself, correct?
Yeah, I do. All the writing and all the artwork for it.
All right. So when you choose, why and how do you choose? Do you, like, when you make your cover, what do you use? What inspires it? Take us through the process real quick.
Well, when I make the covers, usually what I do is, once I get to and it's funny, I make the cover usually last thing with my comic. But I take, once the comic chapter is done, I'll take one panel from the comic that I really like. I don't know if we have a cover that I could show. Actually, wait, what am I doing? Ta-da! Okay. So these two characters, this was a panel from this particular chapter, and I decided that I really thought it exemplified what was going on in the chapter as the characters get to know each other better. And so most of my comics in black and white, but that one I actually, I usually color it and then put it on the front, and that's how I decide my covers. I just pick a panel that I think, from the chapter that I think really works for the rest of the story.
That's really artistic and creative.
Oh,
and I love that. I love that. I love Marvel. We've got loads of Marvel comics. My partner's a geek for
I love Marvel.
So yeah, I love that. He's loving it. He's sat at the side of me.
Appreciate that.
Fantastic, incredible. Wow.
Really beautiful. Now, Andy's covers. I'm going to try to get your.
I've got one here. This is the Peeper and the Playwright. This is the one that you were speaking about. This is the cover art was done by a gentleman. It's a pseudonym. He goes by LJ Rock, and he does more adult, as you can tell. He draws women beautifully, and he created this cover for my book. This is another one that he did of mine. This is a test pressing, so it's got a bar across the front, but you can see again another voluptuous woman. And this is what he excels at, this LJ Rock. And he's got a Patreon and he does this, and I discovered him and I thought to myself, wow, that would be perfect given the nature of the story and the characters that I'm writing about. So yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important, at least, one thing I wanted to have the same author for at least a few different titles, so that I suppose, like you were speaking a moment about branding or establishing an aesthetic, that people can kind of notice it, when they're looking through books online or elsewhere.
I really like that cover, by the way. I saw it when Nick sent the email around of all the with time and date of the podcast, and I saw that cover. I'm like, that's really cool. I like the art style of that.
Yeah. I'd recommend working with him. He's a pleasure to work with. LJ Rock is his name.
Okay, cool,
wonderful.
Suzi, the cover of your book. Yeah, let's get your thing up here too. Oh yeah, okay. You got your book. Tell us about how the cover came to be. Tell us all about it.
I had a drawing of myself, and I thought, which I quite liked, so I thought I would use the picture. And my partner went to art school, and so he sorted the book cover for me and did that for me. But I thought, rather than use a photograph, I wasn't sure, and because of the way my life story is, I thought it was better to have a picture or drawing rather than something else. So a photo, sorry. So I thought I'd use.
And Kaz B, you use photos of yourself. You are a stunning, beautiful woman.
Absolutely stunning.
So you take, you take this other approach. What's it like? Like when when I get photographs or do anything for the book, we specifically use it for the book. So every once in a while we can get some accidental stuff. But do you like the photographs that you use? Were they made specifically for the book? Like when you're sitting there getting a photograph taken, you're like, this is going to be the book cover.
So let's go back a book to this one. When this was done, I didn't know that was going to be the cover, but because it's the front, the last one, The Ruthless Guide to BDSM, we just wanted a strong, sexy image. They actually look quite similar. But we're now in the process of doing a photo shoot so that we can create a coffee book version of this book. So this is obviously the paperback. We are creating a book that's going to be a coffee edition, so we know exactly how it's going to look. So I think it's going to look very sexy, hopefully.
I think that will look really sexy. Well, you're as beautiful as you are, Kaz. You want to be on the front cover. I'm just a drawing of me.
I love it though. It looks so great. And I think because your whole vibe kind of summarizes that almost, I hope you don't mind me saying this, like almost like a bit Blondie, Debbie Harry, that kind of retro vibe. And you've kind of got that pop, what's it called, that pop art kind of feel to it. And it's really cool. I love it. It's stunning.
Thank you. Oh.
Okay, we have on with the questions. Now, as authors, we're in the kink community. Andy, whether you like it or not, now you are.
Welcome, one of us.
Goo gaga, whatever. So, as authors involved in the kink community in some way, or just writing about sex, or writing anything sexual, kink, anything like that, do you feel that you have a responsibility in how you deal with that? let's start off with Kaz B. You're a professional dominatrix. You're very well known. You have fans. They contact me all the time about you. Where are you gonna have Kaz B on?
Oh, that's so sweet.
So do you feel like you have a responsibility, and how does that affect your approach to writing?
I think it's different because I'm a dom in the community. I do have a sense of responsibility. If you're an author, it can be clearly fantasy because there's a bit of a crossover with me, and I'm in the community as a dom. There is a responsibility there because people have and do sometimes look to me, for guidance, like health and safety. How do you do this? How do you do that? And there's obviously certain things that you need to do in a session, like a risk assessment as well. So if I was to write something completely unethical or something that would put someone in a dangerous spot, I think as a dom, that would be pretty irresponsible. So I do have to adhere to, a certain level of conscious thinking to do so.
Yeah. Andy,
Yes.
as an author, like I said, you're not a professional dominatrix, are you?
I am not a professional dominatrix.
Okay. So you have a different take on this. You have a
Yeah.
different take. But when you write something, your family and your friends and your coworkers all read it, right? So do you feel that you have a responsibility now? And how do you
I'll tell you, I write fiction, and that's kind of, if anybody has ever come to me and said, boy, this is really risque or something like that, is this something you're actually into? I always say, no, I write fiction. I was trying to find, when I was ducking down a moment there, and I apologize, I was trying to find my book Wolfish Girl, if only to hold it up as an example. But because in that book I wrote from the perspective of a young woman, I think she was in her mid-20s, and I have no idea how sexuality feels on the other end, being a woman. But I had to write from her perspective, and there was a sex scene in there, and there was something that I had to kind of go through line by line with my wife to make sure that I was trying to get, and I was trying to be as accurate as possible in terms of how it feels on the other end, so to speak. So I suppose I feel like there's a responsibility for accuracy in that sense. Yeah, I think it would be easy for me as a guy to write from a man's perspective on sexuality and the emotions and the feelings and everything that goes along with that, at least from my perspective. But I think,
let me ask a question to the ladies on the panel. When you read something, do you ever get the feeling like, especially when it's about a woman, or written, do you ever get the feeling like, yeah, you could tell this was written by a man? Do you often get that feeling?
I've gotten that feeling before, yes. Not all the time, but
Oh, okay.
But a handful of times, sure. But most of the time, I wouldn't say most of the time I do.
Because I try to make like an effort. First of all my editors are women, right? Everybody, I make sure that, because I don't want to. I want to represent not only myself the right way, but I'm a good person, and I want to represent women the right way. If I read about them, if I'm writing a tribute to, especially a tribute to a woman I love, I want to, do it right. You know what I mean? So, Amy, do you feel that you have a responsibility to the, as a member of the kink community and as a content creator, as an author, as a graphic novelist, do you feel like you have a responsibility?
Somewhat, yes. I think that we have a responsibility to conduct ourselves professionally. We have a responsibility to be sincere and transparent and, to depict, I think, healthy kink dynamics. But I also think that, if we're writing fiction, we do need to remember, it is fiction. Not everything that we do in fiction is always going to be what we think should happen in reality. It's just a story. I had a little bit of conflict once with Orc Girl, where someone asked me, they said, well, I don't know if I can get behind this story because I don't feel that, even though our main character, Jenny, said she was willing to be in this sort of dominant submissive relationship, she wasn't 100% informed, so therefore this is not consensual. So how can I get behind this story? And I'm like, well, when's the last time you got approached by an orc to be his submissive? I mean, there's a lot of things we got to say. I'm like, guys, you know, if that is what you're focusing on, I think you've missed the couple of chapters before this.
Because every time I go to the supermarket, I am harassed by orcs constantly.
It's a problem.
It's a trouble. Suzi, what's your what is your opinion on you? I mean, you are a fetish model, you're a content creator, you're a writer. When you write, do you feel that you have like a responsibility of what you put out there?
I did, and that is why I wrote my book in such a way about the scene in a positive light, where I say they felt like my family, and all my lifelong friends that I had through working in the scene. So everything that I've ever done in the scene, whether it be privately or professionally, I spoke highly. The only way with the abuse, I just speak how the abuse actually was. But the scene, I deliberately spoke about it in a positive way so that people could understand it and think, well, it's not so bad, you know? It's not as bad as what I thought it would be. So yeah, I did. I wrote about the kink world and my work and all the people that I've met, and producers and making the movies and the one-to-ones. I spoke about that in a very positive light because I wanted to put that across.
And I highly recommend tonight, 6 o'clock, Suzi and I are gonna have a one-on-one YKF show. We're gonna dig deep into kink and tell. So please stay tuned to that. Now, as authors in general, right? Not just in the kink community, but just in general. I don't know about you, but I take some precautions when I write about sex because, first of all, I'm always writing about sex in some way. So, right? But I take certain precautions. The precautions I take, first of all, I don't want to use certain words, you know, that are used all the time, of course. I want to come across as someone who's decent. That means a lot to me. I'm a decent human being. If I'm coming, other people I write about, they're hard. They could be scumbags. You know, I redeemed myself. I've done a lot of horrible stuff, but I redeemed myself. But I do. It's very important that the Nicholas Tanek narrator, you know, has. I go in with a precaution, so to speak. So when you write about sex specifically, do you take any kind of precautions, or do you just like write it out and put it in published? Like, yeah. So let's go around the room. Kaz B, do you have any precautions when you take about specifically writing about sex? I'm talking about in detail. I'm not talking about just like, oh, he had sex with her. I'm talking about like his throbbing cock, you know, stuff like that.
Sorry, are you referring to linguistics rather than political correctness?
Both.
Okay. In terms of like political correctness, I would base that on my, you know, what I've learned through doming and accepting people and treating everyone equally. In terms of linguistics, I want it to sound kind of commanding and powerful yet sensuous. So the language, and I might choose some that might be more light-hearted, at times darker. But I would select language that to me would still fit into that category of still feeling sensuous, because that's the style that I like to write, because that's how I would like to read. I wouldn't pick, you know, maybe what someone might consider coarse unless it was for a specific reason. If it fitted, I'd put it in, but I wouldn't put it in there just to be graphic and shock. I would use some kind of descriptive scene probably to shock rather than a specific word. Does that make sense? Personally,
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, Andy, Peeper and the Playwright, and some of your other books, they are sexual, but you are not considered a kink author or an erotic author at all, right? You don't market yourself as that. So, what kind of precautions do you take?
Well, I suppose, you know, the longer I write and the more years that I've been in this, the one thing I've realized is that you don't necessarily have to be super, super explicit, especially when it comes to moments or anecdotes that may be triggering, I suppose, to people. You can speak about something without being absolutely blatant. But that being said, I think part of the joy of reading and having a book is that it's this singular experience. You can be anywhere and with a tablet or your phone reading something that may be extremely explicit, and nobody around you is the wiser. You're having this singular experience that you wouldn't have otherwise in, say, a movie theater where there's a sex scene on the screen and you're around other people. With the book, it's you kind of, at least I do. I go into reading books because I want a special sort of like one-on-one feeling. And this has nothing to do with sexuality, but it's only to say that, and I find this to be true, that when you read a book and you love it, the book loves you back. And I don't know how that works. It's sort of magic, but I suppose that you can be as candid as you want when you're writing it, because the person who's reading it can either stop at any time or enjoy it as much as they like. I think that's a special thing.
I like what you said is like, if you love the book, it loves you back. That's really
yes, it is a romance.
It's really good.
Every book is a romance. It's a romance with the author. It really is. Suzi, any precautions you take? Because a lot of your book is very sexual. Anyways, before you like sat down and got it out of your mind onto the paper, did you like tell yourself, okay, I can't do this, or I can do this, or blah blah?
I did. When I wrote it 13 years ago, it was very graphic and almost, you could say, hardcore. But no, I had to tame it in to satisfy the general public of what I thought was acceptable to read in those certain circumstances. So yeah, I reined it in. But when I first did it, when I wrote it 13 years ago, it was even more sexy than what it is now. Because there's a lot of girl on girl stuff, and as you can imagine, being a slave,
yes,
it can become very graphic, and so I had to bring it in, and to reach a wider audience as well. I had that in my mind.
I want to go around. Let's promote your books. That's what we should do. So start off with Suzi. Suzi, your book, Kink and Tell. Tell us all about it.
My book's about my life story, and it talks about the first 2.5 years of my life in foster parents at the age of 4 who were abusive on both sides, him and her. And I didn't see my mum for 2.5 years, and it was horrendous, the things that they did. And then I'm going to go through it really quickly. Then I go back home, go back into care, and I'm made ward of court, and I have to go into care again. And I become a runaway child living on the streets. And something very drastic happens, because the police are so concerned for my safety, because I'm only a young child. They put me into a lockup, a reform school, which is like a female prison. It's got bulletproof windows and you cannot get out, and it's just like, it's where you go before you go to prison. But I was so young that I had to be put into there. And then I get through my 20s, I go to London, I win a beauty contest, and I start doing glamour modelling. And then I go into spanking and acting as an actress in magazines and videos. And then I meet my husband, who was Jimmy Savile's nephew, who tried to kill me. And from there, obviously I left him. I went to the solicitors, and he was arrested and couldn't come 10 miles near me. And I continue with my spanking career. And then I meet George Harrison Marks, who was a professional photographer for the celebrities back in the 50s who photographed all the big stars. And he was the first person to produce the first nude magazine in the 70s where they airbrushed pubic hairs. And he,
Wow.
yeah, he's very famous, George Harrison Marks.
Okay.
And
Let's go around the room. Let's go around because we're gonna please everyone. We're gonna have a big show today at 6. Yeah. We're gonna go deep into kink and tell. It's gonna be we're gonna have some fun, and we're gonna learn a lot. We have some other guests. Andy, tell us about your books.
Oh, well, my latest book. I know that you brought me on to talk about The Peeper and the Playwright. This was a book that I published in 2022. But as Nicholas mentioned, I do a book a year. Last year's book was, this one was 2021. 2022 was Jade Suede. It was about a young woman who's a teen runaway who becomes a sex worker and then becomes a murderer for hire. And then, but my most recent book is not really at all sexual. It's called 0% Juice. I suppose the only sexual part about it is that the main character has a roommate who harasses women who walk by their apartment through a speaker in the window. But I guess it was more darkly comedic for that purpose. But so I've got 12 books in print. They're all available on Amazon, and if you don't use Amazon, you can use Google Play, and ebooks are as little as $1.99 US. So thank you so much for that opportunity to plug.
Of course. And Orc Girl, we talked about Orc Girl. Kaz B, you do have that one book, but you have books plural, that these Confessions of a Dominatrix, so you came out in my show, but also tell us about these other books that you have.
So there's some fictional books. If I may call my subby to bring the plasma up. I've got 2 of mine here. I don't know if you can. You may sit here, subby. Show those books off. It's not very good. This is my latest book, The Ruthless Guide. So I wanted to create something that was anecdotal, witty, and I collaborated with an amazing, absolutely superb dom called Lady Rampage. So we wrote this together. So it's got health and safety advice, it's got anecdotes, and then we wanted to open it up to the community of kink. So in the back section, it's got real life stories from people in the kink community. So it's got submissives, it's got kinksters, it's got sissies, doms, producers, just to give a voice back to those, that have helped me be in this community for so many years. So it gives them a voice as well. So yeah, you can buy that on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, and soon on Audible.
That is beautiful. I love this. And it's so wonderful. It's so great that you have your sub with
That's again the wave. He's a good boy.
Hello. Oh.
He's not allowed to speak.
He's not allowed to speak. All right. So let me ask you this. You're kinky authors, right? There's kinky authors and then there's vanilla authors. Do you feel judged? How do other authors judge you? Because you're indie, do they judge you? Because you're kinky, do they judge you? You feel judged because you're doing your thing, you're letting your light shine. These motherfuckers want to judge you. Do you feel judged?
So who's asking?
Oh yeah. I gotta choose who goes first. Amy, do you feel judged?
By other kinky authors and by most, I will say like most book authors and novelists, I don't really feel that judged, but I will say for a lot of other vanilla comic artists, I did feel kind of judged by them just because I was graphic and I did push what was acceptable on sites like Tapas and what was the other one that I sometimes post on Webtoon, and they have very strict rules about nudity and sexuality, and I would push those rules to the limits and get in trouble.
The first couple of frames is you is the main character with a vibrator, right?
No, it's about halfway through the chapter.
Is it? Oh, yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
and it
yeah,
happens that's the beginning.
that is early in the story. So
That's interesting that you said that.
Yeah. And so a lot of people were like, well, if you got banned, it's all your fault. I'm like, well, I was following the rules, but they just, but apparently it was too much. So I don't know. Like they, the site would say, oh, we can have nudity, but then ban me for nudity. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
I view it like this. I like Lars Van Trier's obstruction. It's an artistic obstruction. Or Tom Scharpling does it well. He's not allowed to curse on radio when he was on WFMU. So instead of coming in your hand, he'd say, instead of like jerking off, he'd say he's whitewashing your hand.
He'd say he's having a pant rummage.
Yeah. He's having waste fun or something like that. So what about Andy? You wrote, you're not deep in the kink community like we are, but you write any kind of topic that's considered not safe for work or R-rated or whatever, people are going to judge you. So how do other authors or other vanilla authors, do you ever feel judged? Still there? Did you freeze? I think
it's
I think it might have
frozen.
Oh, okay. Well, let's move it around. Suzi, do you feel judged by other authors, whether vanilla authors or kinky authors?
No, I've had some. Kaz been an author herself. Melissa, Peter Birch. They've all been really positive and said that they really enjoyed my book. And considering it's my first book, then I'm quite pleased. I've never had an author judge me, or no one's really ever said anything bad about my book. Everything's been quite positive. So, yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Kaz B, what are the response like from other authors?
So, because I've got an author account on Twitter X now, which I've had some time. To me personally, I haven't felt any animosity or any withdrawal. When I released Dreaming in the Dark, I would say the cover did seem to split the crowd a little bit. So on the cover, I chose to have a kind of dominant-looking woman, semi-dominant in lingerie with several lines on a mirror, because I wanted something really shocking, and just because I've been restricted before by my previous publisher, so I thought I want to do something really outlandish now. And I did find people did take a little bit step back based on the cover, but in terms of content, I think generally people have just been really intrigued and curious, and they want to know more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Andy's back. Andy,
yeah, my apologies. My phone died.
It happens.
Log on via
the show.
Probably would have.
This is a chaos show. Happens all the time. So Andy, as someone who's not in the kink community, if you write anything that's a little not safe for work or you consider rated R, how do other people judge you? How do people respond to that? How do other authors judge you?
You really made me think when you said that, Nick. And I'm a fan of so many different stories in terms of the way to tell them and the amount of sexuality that's included. And I'd say that if folks are looking to judge some work because perhaps it's more sexual than something that they're used to, then perhaps, they're not exploring everything that's out there. I think about authors like Charles Bukowski, for instance, who is wonderful, but could be very, to some ears or to some readers, vulgar in comparison to what they normally read. But no less a great author, and obviously very inspirational, and probably would be considered, literary. Well, at least coming up on what is like classic literary excellence. At least in my opinion, if he hasn't already been considered that. But I suppose folks who are quick to judge somebody or a work for including too much sexuality probably haven't explored enough of what's out there, because there's greatness in everything.
There is.
Yeah,
so
good.
How can indie authors help each other out? I'd put a show on. But this is only so much we could do. I feel indie authors, we're a special kind. We are. We do it yourself. We don't depend on anybody else. We're not depending on publishing companies or anything like that. We'll use the help. We're open, of course, but we have something in us that has to come out. We express ourselves. We have to, right?
I suppose through supporting each other is probably the biggest way to help one another, for sure. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
So who are some other indie authors that we could shout out that influenced you?
Well, Kaz for one, and Melissa Todd, and I've got this to read as well, so I'd like to plug
Derek Cooper.
and yourself as well.
Oh, thank you.
And because Melissa Todd, brilliant book. And because I was anxious to get Kaz's book, her books are on ebooks, so I can't get it on the screen. But yeah, I promote them all.
Okay.
All of
Great. Now, one of the things as authors and as content creators, you're graphic novelists. I don't know about you, but I am bombarded with scams. People trying to I'll get you on the radio. I'll get you on a podcast. Yeah. Oh, you get me. Great. I'll get you. 1,000 likes on Insta or 1,000 followers on Twitter, and every day I get bombarded with this stuff. Do you? And if you do, how do you deal with scammers?
I don't think we get that in our country, in the UK. The only thing I get
Melissa was saying that.
Yeah, the only thing I get is people want to spank my bum or cane it. And the only thing I get. So, but no, I don't think we get it in the UK. We don't scammers. I've never come across it.
What about Amy or Andy? Do you get people coming out you saying that you can sell your books, be in my book fair, and here's $1,000, I'll get you on the radio or something like that?
Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, you go first.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, I've absolutely been approached by folks, especially on self-publishing rather, through Amazon, where indie authors would reach out and say, hey, I'll give your book a 5-star review if you give my book a 5-star review. like sight unseen. And to me, that's so dishonest. It's nothing that I'm looking to partake in, this tit for tat, but just like, to me, that's being, dishonest to the buying public. I've never rated my own books, and I don't intend.
I never rated my own books.
I think part of what makes a book great in a lot of times is the fact that it would be polarizing, meaning that there's a segment of the population who absolutely loathes it, and there's a segment of the population that absolutely loves it. To me, some of the most compelling media available, it falls exactly into that category. Think about films that, as soon as they come out, they're absolutely pulled apart by critics and viewers alike. And there are critics who say it's an absolute work of garbage, and then critics who say it's a masterpiece. And those films, Megalopolis is a perfect example. Those films, in my opinion, are the ones that I can't wait to see. And I once asked a friend, I said, why is it that I'm compelled and attracted to these works of media, whether it's a book or an album or a film that is polarizing to a critic? And he said it's very simple, because these people have such polarizing thoughts about this thing, whether they absolutely loathe it or absolutely love it. You need to find out how you feel about it. So in that way, I think a polarizing work can be absolutely magnetic in that way.
I think Francis Ford Coppola said it best in an interview recently about Megalopolis. He said, art without risk is like making babies without sex. Right?
Interesting.
So art without. Okay, so let's get down to the.
Oh, if you wanted to give Amy a moment, I don't know if you had anything to suggest.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was just real quick.
Right.
One I've had is I see this. I started getting a bunch of messages on DeviantArt of people wanting to. They say, "Hey, I'd like to draw one of your characters, and I'll pay you for it as credit." And I'm like, I got like 5 of these at once. So I'm like, this is suspicious. So I Googled it, and apparently it's a scam where they pay people, and they're going to draw their art, but they pay them in a money order, and the money order is fake. Oh yeah. And so you go to cash it, and the bank's like, "Excuse me." So I'm like, okay, so yeah, I've got like my inbox is flooded with those.
Man, my God, that's terrible.
Right? Yeah.
People do that. Frightening.
Mhm.
Because you don't know how.
Here's an interesting scam. I don't know if you guys know about the movie scam. There's a movie scam going around. I get contacted by HBO, Columbia Pictures, HBO Max, and they're like, "Yeah, we want to make chip black nail polish into a movie." Really? No one read it. How the hell you would have been? Yeah. And it's all talk. It's like they say, "Yeah, we're doing," and they, a lot of people, I don't know, they're taking the piss or they're scamming. And I looked up the internet. I looked on the internet, and there's a scam. So watch out. Indie authors, someone may say like, "Hi, I'm from HBO" or something like this. I don't know how the scam works. I don't care. But I think if someone wants to make the movie, put their money where their mouth is. Come reach out to us. I got a whole crew of people. We want to make a movie. Let's do it. We're here. I know I'm easy to get in touch with. I think and that goes for everybody on this panel. Everybody has a story that would make a kick-ass movie. Seriously. So anybody film producer out there. Yeah, anybody listening.
Sorry, Nick. I didn't mean to talk over you, but I was going to say one thing Sharpling said. We were talking about Tom Sharpling in the Best Show. Yeah. I remember him saying, everybody's concerned about having an agent or getting an agent. And he said, agents are looking for people. If they think you're right for them, they will find you. It's not a matter of you needing that or having to reach out to somebody or find that. And then obviously, that's when things get optioned in terms of films or movies, and that's what an agent's for.
That goes to my next question. Choosing a publisher and an agent. Right now on this panel, at this moment, does anyone officially have an agent?
No.
Yeah. No. We do it ourselves. I'm proud of it. I'll tell you, if an agent wants to help me, gets me work,
sure.
I'm totally here. Yeah, and that goes for everyone on this panel. So now, but when choosing a publisher, what method did you use? So let's go. First of all, Orc Girl is it's a graphic novel. If I want to put out a graphic novel, your kinky friend graphic novel, everyone on this panel goes on wild adventures and stuff like that. And I do it, and I want to do it. How do I drew it, and I wrote the story, and I have it all on paper. How do I publish it?
Honestly, I just found a place that would print it. And then I sell issues. Like I used to do comic events, and I would sell it, chapter by chapter. But now I sell them through my Etsy store. And yeah, I published it myself. I just went to a place that prints comics, and they do them in bulk. And I just told them this is how many I want. And I had to make sure I filled that my pages fit their size specifications, but that was it.
Right. And Andy, when when Who's Virginia Wolves came out and People in the Playwright came out, how do you
well, it's interesting. I'd had colleagues say, are you interested at all in trying to find a publisher? And I don't handle rejection well. I don't think anybody likes rejection. And I could imagine, submitting work that is deeply personal or something that I'm very proud of, and then having it be turned away again and again. And I understand that that's the nature of business, and that's the nature of having a publisher. And obviously there are benefits to having a publisher who can promote your work. I remember reading Stephen King's On Writing. I don't know if anybody's read that, but
excellent book.
It's a great book, and I was afraid to read it because I'd published 3 or 4 books, and I thought to myself, if I read this On Writing, And
I'm doing it all wrong.
Stephen King says I'm doing everything wrong. I'm going to feel foolish. And the person who recommended it said, no, it's not like that at all. It's encouraging. And it was absolutely encouraging. It's a great book. And I recommend it even as an independent author. I thought it was very inspiring. And I'm not a Stephen King person at all. I don't, read his books or anything like that. I don't not read them. It's just not my preference. But I was going to say that he talked about having like this railroad, like in his little house in Maine, he had like this railroad stake in the wall. And on that railroad stake, he'd put every single letter that he got, his rejection letters from publishers, he just put them onto the stake and collect them, if you can picture that, on his wall. And it was just like, I don't know, it was some sort of like, I suppose, motivation in one sense, but also weirdly prideful, And then eventually when a publisher decided to take a chance on him, and he had great success, and it came through. But I don't know if it's my age, because I started writing in my mid-30s, and I just thought to myself, I don't want to wait for that, or if it was just a matter of I'm happy with what I'm doing and I know what I want to do, and I don't want to be judged by somebody in a publishing business and telling me that I need to change things or do something differently. In this way, I'm my own boss, and I like that.
I was thinking the same way. The books I write, every book I write, and the new one too, is tributes. So in other words, I don't need the publishing, the money behind it. I need money to get it published, obviously, but I wanted everything to be organic. So the covers done by Melissa Blair, passed away, rest in peace. The editing was done by her too. So this was done out of just sheer love. The forwards were by Luna Dark, Ariana Stooney, and Wendy Buck. All were done just because I know them and they believe in the work. And that's what I wanted that to kind of resonate in it, as opposed to, something prefabricated, just made to sell money. I hate reading a book knowing that like it's made just to sell money. Like I read this book already. You know what I mean? Like this is me. But that's why I love the fact that all of you are writing. You're writing your stories from the heart. Even if it's fiction, they're yours and they're original, and you're doing it, because you feel like you have to read it. And that's what makes a difference. So let's get to real quick. I know Andy's got some things, but we'll get to him last on this one. When you're getting in the mood, I put on certain songs. When I wrote Your Kinky Friends, I was very OCD. I put a Raining Sound song on, the song by a band called Raining Sound called Your Love Is a Fine Thing. I had OCD. I had to put it on every single time I wrote. And I just get me in the mood, get me upped up. Your Love Is a Fine Thing by the Raining Sound. And just for that book. Other books had a different one. Coolest Way to Kill Yourself was Mother of Pearl by Roxy Music. Do you have music that gets you in the mood? So let's start off with Suzi. When you were writing, did you have music to put you in the mood?
Well, it was the opposite way around for me, because every chapter that I was writing, I was relating a song that was out in the charts at that particular time. So like when I was running away, it was Blondie. When I was in my first love, it was Roxy Music, and Suzi and the Banshees. And so I was doing the chapters, and obviously it was really traumatic, but it's funny you bring this up, because I was able to tune into the songs that gave me joy in those particular times as well. So it was quite therapeutic in a sense, but it's the other way around, if you know what I mean. I relate.
Oh, without a doubt. I've had countless nights where I'm listening to like songs like Withered Hand or even Pulp, and I'm crying because I'm all emotional because of it. I put on a song like on a certain chapter. Your Love Is a Fine Thing by Raining Sound. There's a chapter in Your Kinky Friends called I Guess I'm a Slut Now. And that's like the soundtrack. That song is the soundtrack for it. It's this montage of, and I would play it on repeat and just right until the chapter was done, or I was done with that night with that chapter, enough, work. And then that's why I would listen to the song all day until I listen to that chapter, right in that chapter again. I don't know. What about Amy? You love music. What are some of your songs that get you in the mood to write?
Well, when I first started working on Orc Girl, I really got into synth and vaporwave music, which is kind of that sort of background. People are familiar with it. It's kind of like that background music you would hear in a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s. And because I guess Orc Girl at the time made me think of a lot of like movies and cartoons and anime from the 80s and 90s that I grew up watching. And it put me in the mood. Today I listen to a lot of lo-fi beats on YouTube.
They're great.
They're great. They're just great. Soft, mellow,
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of MF Doom, and there's a mix of lo-fi MF Doom, and MF Doom doesn't really have choruses in the songs, so it's just like you never know what song is gonna. It's really good. It's like an hour. Yeah, MF Doom lo-fi beats. What about you, Kaz B? Any songs that get you in the mood to write?
I think it's going to be anything I've got a strong emotional connection with. So Amy just mentioned the 80s. I was very much a fan of like some of the electronic music, Bowie, Pet Shop Boys, and that kind of synth sound. But then on the other hand, sometimes I can never pronounce the name of the composer. A lot of the violin, was it Pagani or Paganini, the devil's violinist?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. So when I hear that, I don't know why, it just makes my brain go wild, and I just want to get everything out. It just gets my brain whirling, and it puts me in a really creative mood.
And Andy, you're a Momus fan.
I'm a Momus fan, but I tend not to listen to music with lyrics when I'm writing. If only
I get that too.
I find it's a bit distracting, especially if it's not something I've heard before. I'll find myself instead of concentrating on what I'm writing, like listening to the words. So I tend to go more instrumental and or foreign. If for instance, there was a Japanese artist named who called himself Sonic Dragolgo that I found on Bandcamp, and he put out this album called My Sweet Honey Bunny, and it was just really, really fast electronic gabber music, and it was just so chaotic and noisy, and it really just kind of helped put me in a spot to crank out sentences, and I use that. I like that a lot. That's one that comes to mind.
That's cool. I like that.
Now this is a serious question. What kind of legacy do you want your work? Do you want your work to create? What kind of legacy do you want to have? Basically, let's start out with Amy. What kind of legacy do you want to have?
You want to start with me? Is that what you said?
Did you say
Amy? I'm sorry. Did you say Amy or Andy? I didn't. Sorry.
Amy. Let's start with Amy. Thank you. Start with Amy.
Okay.
What kind of legacy?
I think I would like my work to bring out those sort of when we first get into a movie when we're young, like when we first saw Star Wars, when we first saw Lord of the Rings, when we first watched Legend, or any of these like classic movies that just the first time we watched them, they just captivated us. I want my work to always bring you back to that time in your life where you're experiencing something fun and exciting for the first time that brings you into this fantasy world that you can escape to. And I want, ideally for people to look back at my work and to always have that same feeling, that almost, I wouldn't even call it nostalgia, but just that feeling of something new and exciting.
What a beautiful answer. Let's go to Andy. Andy, legacy. When you're talking about, what kind of legacy do you want your work to?
Well, I suppose the reason why, I enjoy writing and creating a bibliography is because there's been so many writers that saved my life in terms of, being in a bad place or being in a very low place and feeling like an author, I was able to identify an emotion or a feeling. So I've always decided that what I wanted to do was create a bibliography that somebody could read one of my books. They're all standalone stories, and hopefully enjoy it so much that they seek out other stories written by me, and in that way kind of be a place for them to be able to go and count on my literature as something that will make them feel better and not so alone in the world.
Yes, I feel the same way. I tried to, once I started getting people saying, people started saying like, "Oh, I felt that way too," or "I thought I was the only one," or I don't feel less. I feel less alone because of what you've written about. You know what I mean? That makes me write more. That makes me want to write more, and once we can continue to create and just do stuff, it's a beautiful feeling. Suzi, Suzi, you've written quite a story. So you're going to leave a legacy behind. What kind of legacy do you want your work to show?
I want people to, if they've been in a situation like me, if I can help one person, then that's a legacy for me. Because when you're in that situation and you are feeling the feelings that you feel of guilt, shame, I hope that I can make people strong and overcome the situations that they may be in at that particular time, whether you're a young child or an adult. So if I can help one person, two people, or inspire them, then I've done a good job.
Well, I think you're already inspiring people. I think you're already doing a great job.
Oh, bless you.
A very good job. Kaz B, when it comes to legacy, even after we're gone, our writing lives on, right? So what kind of legacy are you hoping to leave?
What you've all just said has really resonated with me. So the way I see us collective, or say we're all tiny little light bulbs, and one lights up and it connects to this one, and the signal and the message is sent, and then it connects to another, and all these little light bulbs then light up. So kind of in line with what Suzi said, and Amy and Andy and yourself, I think if we all continue to light up and spread awareness, information, support each other, then that just makes the world such a brighter place.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We have some questions, some fan questions. This is specifically, I think, I would say this is for the kinky writers out there. Nico Noir says, do you find when writing, specifically kink, you find yourself censoring your own thoughts and words to fear that the reader will think you're too explicit or perverted? Andy was talking about that, kind of less is more. Do you find yourself doing that? Kaz B, do you find yourself doing that?
I do. I don't think I give an absolute damn about what the reader thinks. So I'm more worried that a family member might just curiously flick it open one day. Oh, what the hell? I try to be as authentic as possible, but bearing in mind that someone I know very closely could pick it up and go, I did not know she was that demented.
All right. Here's a new question from Kevin Kashi, and we'll go around the room. We'll start off with Amy. Are there any types of characters or topics you struggle writing well?
I remember I had a really difficult time writing a battle scene. It took me, I had to do some research to learn how to write a battle scene. I knew how to write romance and character and interaction and conflict, but writing a battle where it didn't seem very dry, that did take a little bit of research and work on my part. So, and I still don't think it's my strong suit, but I managed to at least write in a way that was cohesive and it wasn't completely boring.
Okay. Andy, are there any types of characters or topics you struggle writing well?
Yeah, I'd say because I'm an only child, siblings are tough for me. I think I've always wanted to have a brother or a sister, and I enjoy writing about those characters, but the relationship and emotions and the similarity between the two or dissimilarity between the two is sometimes hard to pin down for me. So, and to try to make it sound genuine, I suppose I try to keep in mind that they're their own people and they're going to be different, and that's going to happen. But also they do have a shared experience in that they're growing up in the same household with the same mother and father. So that's sometimes tricky for me, especially again because I was the only one.
Okay, Suzi, any types of characters? See, you're in a different story because is not really Here's an autobiography, as opposed to, you know, there are no orcs in your story. And you're not writing from another gender or anything like that. So it's a little different. Now, with your characters or types you struggle writing well, when you're writing real characters like I have, I've had some struggles myself. What struggles have you had writing your characters?
Well, I think my struggles were with Kevin and getting him 100% correct of how he actually was. I mean, I did actually downplay a lot with me and Kevin, but also to the instance in like when I was raped in the trailer and my foster parents who were abusive. That was really hard to get their characters right because I'm completely you have to go in the zone of what was in their heads. And so that was quite difficult because it's hard to think of someone who has that mindset, you know, how they can be that way. So I hope I caught that as to the best that I possibly could, if that makes sense.
And Kaz B, are there any type of characters or topics that you struggle writing well? Like you, because I have a scene in Your Kinky Friends. It's called Base Mom, which is a consensual rape scene, basically. I try to make it funny. I don't know. I don't, not really at the end, but at the end there's a punchline. But it's a struggle. I want to do it right. I didn't want it, you know. So it was hard. So Kaz, were there any types of characters or topics that you struggled writing well?
Yeah, I can really relate to that and understand where you're coming from. So I think when you're writing about power play, it can be a really sensitive issue. And I'm very lucky in the fact that I've got a BDSM background and there are people around me that I can speak to. And I obviously have dom friends that I follow. I've got a lot of subs that I can speak to and get inside their mind. So it's really helped to have that level of feedback as well, rather than just kind of, you know, sat there Googling, how would this sort of person be feeling? I can say, and how did you feel in that moment? So getting those real life stories have been really beneficial. And I think if I didn't have that, for me personally, it would probably be a lot harder to get my mindset into, you know, where they might be sitting.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're going to end it with this. Kevin Kashi asks, any advice on getting better at writing? So let's start off with Andy. Any advice on how to get better? How do you get better writing, Andy?
I'd say read a lot. You know, read everything and find things that make you feel something. You know, and then I'd say draw inspiration from that. If you know, I'd say my favorite writing elicits a reaction, whether it's me laughing out loud or me like emoting through tears because something is so painful or sad. It's my body telling me essentially that what I'm reading is probably great, or most likely if it's can elicit an emotion, you know. So I'd say that follow your body. If you're reading something and it speaks to you in such a way that it causes you to emote, then you're probably reading something great, and be inspired by that.
That's really
Go
good
with your gut.
Yep.
You go with your gut. Ami Mercury, any advice? How do you get better at writing?
I think you just have to do it. And sometimes, you know, you write sentences where you're later on, you're like, nope, taking that out. Yep. But, you know, you just got to get it out, you know, good or bad. You can, and this is something that I have to remind myself too when I'm writing something, is that even if the sentence even if I go back later and I don't like it, I can always edit it until I like it. So, just write, just practice Carnegie Hall and such.
It's not published yet. That's why I tell myself that it's not published yet, and plus, I don't know. I in terms of like the process. I always tell myself I can just write. If you write 3 pages, if you get one excellent sentence, it's worth it. You can delete everything. You get one excellent sentence that inspires a whole other book, it's worth it. You know what I mean? Just write. Suzi Suzi, how do I get better at writing?
I think what Andy said, I think the more you read, the more better that it would become to write better. So yeah, I need to read more. So that's
Kaz
why.
B.
I totally agree with what everyone on the panel has said so far, and I think also if you're new to writing, and it is a cliche, but it's so true. If you write what is close to your heart, write about what you know and start with, and then just get it out there, and then you can always self-critique once you've got it out there, but be as authentic as you can, and you can edit later, but just get it out. That is the beginning, because so many people overthink and procrastinate rather than just getting started.
Yeah. And you know what? For all those critics out there, or for anyone who's watching this and is like, who the hell are these people? Blah, 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 blah. What the hell have you done? Seriously. We're doing something. Seriously, we're doing something. We're creating something.
We're in the trenches, yo.
Nothing. Yeah. We're creating something out of nothing. Yeah. Stan Vladimir. I cannot forget about my man, Stan Vladimir. I love this guy. Stan Vladimir, he's our art. He does all the art, all the banners, everything like that. He is a true gentleman. Any dom out there, treat him nice, please. He will be respectful. He's cool, kind, and he keeps an open mind. He asks, and I'm going to go around the room. We'll start off with Amy. What are your top 3 favorite genres to read?
Let's see. Well, I really, of course, gotta say, I love monster romances. I like sci-fi fantasy, and I like horror.
Kaz B, what are your top 3 favorite genres to read?
At the moment, probably top would be thrillers. I've started getting back into my zombies in a big way as well.
This is adorable.
No idea. And also comedy, and I do quite like a lot of autobiographies as well, because it's just so fascinating to see how everyone else lives their lives and the experiences they've gone through. So yeah, they'll probably be my top 3 right now.
But yeah, getting to know someone through an autobiography is a unique experience, which I love. I try to write my book like autobiographies, like in the style of one. You know what I mean? That's, I don't know, my style. Suzi, what are your top 3 genres to read?
Detective stories, romance, and thrillers. I think of mine.
Last but not least, Andy.
I'd say literary fiction. I love memoirs, and I like speculative fiction quite a bit. I don't read a lot of it, but good speculative fiction, or what is referred to sometimes as science fiction. Yeah.
All right, we're finishing up. We got some people. Nico says, hello, gorgeous, great question. Sunshine, it's worse when I was reading something written by a woman and I was thinking, who wrote this? They don't get women at all. When a woman writes about a woman wrong. Yeah. Wow.
Nice.
Oh, Stan Vladimir, have you ever had thoughts of rewriting your books because you weren't satisfied on how you've written them? That's an excellent question. Let's end it with that. All right, Suzi, you just put out Kink and Tell. Do you want to, is there anything that like you wish you want to do, you want to change? It's already out there, you can't do it. You could do a second, version of it or whatever. But yeah, do you ever have thoughts of rewriting your book?
Just a second.
I wrote it 13 years ago, and when I wrote it, it was 1,000 pages long,
Wow.
and so I had to rewrite it again. So it was rewritten because it was rejected 13 years ago by a PR guy who, funny enough, ended up going to prison. That's another story, probably going in book 2. But yeah, I rewrote it, and I write all my by hand first. Everything's by hand, and then I write it on the computer and do the spell check. But I've got thousands of these, so I've got more by hand first. Old school. Write it all out, and then type it all out.
What about
it's quite-
Amy? Did you ever feel that you have to rewrite any of your books because you're not satisfied?
Oh yeah, like looking back, especially at the first chapter of Orc Girl, I thought to myself, I would really like to go back and redo this just because I feel like it moved a little too slow. I wish looking back I'd gotten into the meat of the story a little bit quicker, but there was a lot of pretense, a lot of backstory I wanted to get into. So I understand why I did it that way. But if I had a choice to do it all over again, I would. It would probably be a little quicker.
I love it though. I think it captures the moment. I think it's great to do it. You know, that's just my opinion. What the hell do I know? Kaz B, you've written a couple books. Have you ever thought of rewriting any of your books because you weren't satisfied?
I always think look forwards, never backwards. So, I mean, there
Right
are books
on.
I had all the time in the world. Dreaming in the Dark, for example, I think every 3-4 years we change a lot. I would go back and do a lot of that very differently now. I was in a very different place in my life, but I think rather than go backwards, I'd rather think what's the next project and do something completely different, because what's done is done.
Yeah, I view the same way. What about you, Andy? You've written so many books, and you could always change them if you want and put them back. Do you?
No, I don't. You know, it's. I think it's the nature of art that whenever an idea leaves your head, it's already compromised. I think there's so many times you have a vision of what you want. I suppose like drawing a picture, you've got this amazing piece in your mind, and whatever comes through your brain, through your hand onto the paper is usually completely different than what you imagined. When I have an idea for a story, I always have maybe a grand idea for something, but whenever it leaves my head and comes out onto the page, it's never exactly what I imagined. There's always, and I suppose in that way, there's sort of certain beauty to that, that it's no longer my own.
Yes.
So
I find that beautiful. I find it absolutely beautiful. As I find it beautiful too. So let's go around the room. We're finishing it up. Let's promote our books. Let's go first. Suzi's going to be on the show 6 p.m. Stay tuned. We're going to go deep into kink and tell. How can we reach out to you? How can people buy your book, Suzi?
You can reach out to me at Suzi Martell on Twitter or at Strictly English on Twitter. That's the only platform that I'm on at the moment.
And you can buy the book at Amazon.
And you can buy yes, of course. And you can buy the book at Amazon.
It's everywhere. Amazon, yes. And Goodreads. And reviews. I'm putting 5-star reviews. Mark my words, you'll see Nicholas Tanek 5-star reviews on every single one of these authors' books. I've read them. I support them. I have them on my show. I'm not doing this because I do this for the love. I genuinely love these. I love what they're doing. All right, Ami Mercury, please, your work, all of the work, your content, your makeup, your monster. How can we hire a professional monster?
Let's see. Well, you know what? You can start by checking me out on Twitter. It's Ami Mercury, all one word. If you want to check out more of Orc Girl, you can go to orcgirl.com. I post my pages there. I have my comics for sale on Etsy. And I do have an Orc Girl Twitter, but I don't really use it much. So honestly, just go ahead and find me at Ami Mercury.
A lot of people are going to Blue Sky. Twitter's a bummer.
Yeah, I have Blue Sky as well. So
yeah. I mean, it's not really popping like it should be, but it takes time. Kaz B, how can people support your work, buy your books, support you?
So they're all on Amazon, obviously, Audible, and I think the easiest way to find me is Linktree. It's just Kaz B XX, and that should link back to most of my links. So Kia said BXX. You can find everything.
And finally, Andy, how can we buy your books and support you and listen to your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. My books are available via Amazon and Google Play, and I'm on all social media as myself. You can just look me up by Andy Mascola. Thank you.
And definitely check out Andy Mascola's podcast, People Are the Enemy. I've been on it. Anna Biller has been on it. She's got Anna Filler. I love Viva, the Love Witch, all of her work. Tom Sharpling was on it as well. Yeah,
Yes. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Oh, thank you. I hope that someone is listening or watching this, and I hope, you know what? I hope they get inspired to write. Create something, do something. Go out there, support kinky art, read a book. Yeah, you know what? Check this out. You'll have one up on everybody else because you read. Because people don't read these days. Yeah,
right. It'll make you a more interesting person.
Yeah. You want to be a dom? You want to be an alpha male or whatever? Yeah, read. Be whatever. I don't know. Just read a book. Your kinky friends.
See, showing everybody how to do it. There we go. Just open the book, guys.
Yes. Ah, the whole world's in here. Please check out Your Kinky Friends. Subscribe to Spotify. Stuff on Spotify that's not on YouTube. We take everything off YouTube. We put it on Spotify first, and eventually we sneak it on YouTube, and then we're going to take it off. So be in the moment. The greatest joy is now, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of it. Everybody, be cool.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you so much, Nick, for this opportunity. Appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Absolutely, Nick.
Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you all.
Look, yeah, lovely meeting you all too. Lots of love, Kaz. I'll see you on Twitter later.
I'm going to be watching your show later.
Oh, nice. Bless you.
Good night, everybody. Be cool, be kind, keep an open mind. Take care.
Take care.